Chapter 3 covers HTML forms and handling of form data in PHP. HTML web forms are used to capture information from visitors on your website. You can use PHP to receive and process the data from a web form. If you need a refresher on HTML forms, visit the link at the bottom of the slide. Use the HTML form tag to create web forms. All form elements, such as input fields and buttons, must be inside the form tags. The action attribute is part of the form's opening tag. It tells the form what action to take when the form is submitted. In our case, it tells the form which PHP file to run when the form is submitted. The PHP script code that you write to handle the form fields goes in this PHP file. For example, look at the form tag near the bottom of the slide. The form will run the code inside the sompage.php file when the form is submitted. HTML5 includes several new input field types, such as email, number, and URL, to assist users in entering information into forms correctly. These are supported by all modern browsers. Visit the link at the bottom of the slide for more information. In the example, you see the input type equals email. This tells the browser that whatever is entered into this field must be in the format of an email address. Otherwise, the input is not accepted. When creating HTML forms, one thing that we need to decide is how to send the information from the web form to the server. We have two choices, get or post. They both send information to the server, but in different ways. The get method sends the information as part of the URL and is visible to the user. The post method sends the information as part of the request message and is invisible to the user. Visit the link at the bottom of the slide for more information. When using the get method, the information in the form is attached to the URL. The form information is sent in name-value pairs. First the name of the field, then the value entered into the field. In this example, the form action would have called the page.php file. Right after the file name, you see a question mark. This tells PHP where to start looking for the form fields and their values. After that, you see a variable name and an equal sign and a value. This is the name of the field on the form and the value entered into the form. For example, you see age equals 20. This means there was a field on the form called age, and the value entered in the field was 20. You may also see ampersands as in the example. This is used to separate each form field or name-value pair. When using the post method, the information in the form is sent to the server but is not visible. The user will only see the URL as in the example in the slide. The form information is still sent in name-value pairs, and the server still has access to all of the information from the form. It just isn't visible to the user. There may be times when you want to use the get method and other times when you want to use the post method. Since the get method adds to the URL, there is a limit to the information that can be passed. For very large forms, you may have to use the post method instead. Since the information in the get method is visible, there is a security risk. You would not use the get method when there is sensitive information on the form, like a password. The password would be visible each time the form is submitted. The information in a GET request can be bookmarked in the browser. The information in a POST request is hidden and cannot be bookmarked. A page reloaded with the POST method may be prompted to resubmit the page. A page reloaded with the get method will not be prompted. The prompt may look something like this depending on your browser. You use the method attribute on the form's opening tag to specify the get or post method. In this example, the form will submit using the post method and run the handle_form.php file. The information from the form is stored in a predefined variable called $_get or $_post. The get method uses the $_get variable, and the post method uses the $_post variable. Both of these are arrays that contain the name and the value of each form field. Since these are arrays, you cannot simply use the print function to display the value. To display the contents of an array, use the printr or the var_dump function. Both of these functions display the entire content of the array. The var_dump function displays some additional information. On the slide, you can see examples of using the printr and the var_dump function to display the $_post array. Also included on the slide are links to the official documentation for each of these functions. So here are examples of using the printr function to print the contents of an array. First, we create an indexed array and print its content. Remember that an indexed array uses numbers as the key. There are 3 elements in this array with keys 0, 1, and 2. Then we create an associative array and print its content. Associative arrays use strings as the key. There are 3 elements in this array with keys Peter, Ben, and Joe. We'll use PHP Fiddle to run the code and review the results. In the Windows tab, you should see the values and the indexes of each array displayed. To access the values of an array, you use the key. Since get and post are associative arrays, their keys are strings. And it just so happens that the key string matches the name of the input field on the form. For example, we see an input field with the name equal address. When you submit the form, an element in the post array is created with the name address and the value entered on the form. To access the value in the address element, you would use $_post, open square bracket, address, close square bracket. This returns the value in the address element of the post array. To see an example of this, let's use the code from the previous example. Look at the last line in the indexed array code section. We are accessing the first element, that is index 0, in the A array. When reading this code, you would say A sub 0, meaning array A subscript 0 or index 0. The value in the first element is red, so we should see red in the display. Remember that the keys in indexed arrays are numbers, and the index key starts at 0. Now look at the associative array section. In the last line of code, we are accessing the Peter element in the B array. The value of the Peter element is 35, so we should see 35. Associative arrays use strings as their keys. Let's use PHP Fiddle to run the code and review the results. You see, when we print the 0 index of the first array, we display red, and when we print the Peter element of the second array, we display 35. Eventually you will have errors in your code. One of the easiest ways to find errors is to display the error messages. By default, PHP does not display error messages. You can see the display error setting in PHP info on your server. You can turn on error messages for your entire PHP web server. This is preferred because error messages will display for all pages on your website. If for some reason you cannot turn on error messages on the web server, you can turn it on for each page using the ini set function shown at the bottom of the slide. Only display error messages when you're testing. Don't display them on your live website. The error messages could contain sensitive information that you may not want to display to the public. Displaying error messages will be very helpful for your assignments. The ini set function is temporary and only shows errors on the pages where it is included. And depending on the kind of error and where the error occurs on your page, you might not see any error messages at all. Another setting that helps to show error messages is the error reporting. Again, you can set this on your entire PHP web server, or you can include the error reporting function on each page. You will want to set this to show all possible error messages. It is possible to send data to a PHP page manually without using a form. In this case, you would create a URL and add the name-value pairs, that is, the fields and values, manually. Basically, you're creating the same GET method request as a form, but you set the fields and values manually. For example, the URL on the slide runs the page.php file and passes the name-value pair with the field name ID and the value equal 22. The page.php file would read this from the $_get array, the same as if this would have come from a web form. The page.php file doesn't even know the difference. So let's work through an example from the textbook. Look at script 3.2, the feedback.html file. It contains a form with 5 input fields and a submit button. Fields are title, name, email, response, comments, and submit. Several things to notice here. First, the form has an action. In this case, it's handleform.php. This is the file that will be run when the form is submitted. What's really happening here is when you submit the form, the browser sends a request to the web server for the handle_form.php file. All of the values entered on the form are sent as part of the request. Second, the form method is post. So the form will submit the information using the post method, and the form data will be received in the post array. Finally, each form field has a name. This is the name of the name-value pair in the request and the name of the element in the post array. You will use this name to access the value in the post array. Now look at script 3.3, the handle_form.php file. Notice that it reads each of the fields from the post array using the name of the field. This is how PHP code reads the values entered on the form. The names have to match. The name of each element in the post array matches the name of each form field. In this case, title, name, response, and comments. The handle form.php file reads the values from the form and displays them in the browser. You really could do anything you needed with the values, but in this case it just displays them using the print function. What's really happening here is the handle_form.php file is creating a web page that contains HTML tags and text, and sends a response back to the web browser to display the page that was created. Since HTML runs in the browser, you could test the HTML form in your browser. But when you hit the Submit button, nothing would happen or you would get an error. Remember that PHP has to run on a server. So testing the form in the browser is okay, but you can't test the PHP until you upload it to your web server. I'm going to upload both files to my web server and test it from there. Upload the files. Enter the URL for the HTML page in the browser. Enter information on the form and submit. Submit sends a request to the web server. The handle_form.php file processes the request and generates a response. The response is sent back to the web browser.